Welcome to the first episode of my Christmas decorating series. This week we are doing DIY decorations. Now there's no power tools, there's no painting, there's little or no money spent, but we are going to make some really high-end Christmas decorations. In fact, they're good for winter, so these are going to be decorations that you can leave out till spring. First of all, we're going to shop from nature. Now, I love my pine cones. I also love twine and string, and I'm recycling this from a previous project. I'm going to be using some florist wire and some ribbon. Any ribbon will suit. Now, scissors. If your scissors are not very sharp and they are not expensive scissors, then this is a great tip for sharpening them up. Just fold up some tin foil, as we call it here in the UK, and then just cut maybe 5-6 times, and you'll find it makes a huge difference to the sharpness of the scissors. So now we're all prepped, let's get started. I'm going to make a pine cone cluster my way. Now these are really quite heavy and I would normally hang them from the bottom, but this time I'm going to use the wire around the top to create a fixing. I cut a decent length and then just weave it in and out until we get a nice secure fixing that will take the weight of the pine cone. I want the overall drop of my cluster to be around about 4 feet. So I'm pulling out about 6 feet length of string and I'm going to tie on one pine cone at one end just by wrapping the wire around the string and then doing a very simple knot and then tying the string, twisting the string further into the pine cone, and that just helps to keep it really secure. I'm then going to take the other pine cone that I've already wired up and attach it to the other end of the string. And this is the only time I'm going to do one length of string with pine cones at either end. The reason I'm doing it this way is because I want to create a very strong loop, a strong hanger at the top, as these are very heavy pine cones. The reason I'm being very precise with my measurements is because I know exactly where I want these to go. And also I'm going to make 2 of them, so I want them to look as close to identical as you possibly can when dealing with things from nature. So I've pretty much got it laid out how I want. I've wired up the rest of my cones. I'm actually using 13 in total here. And then I'm taking lots of odd bits of string here and doing the same thing again, just wiring the pine cones onto the string, twisting them down and then tying a knot. And I'm trying to space things out in the way that I would like to see them when they're hanging. Once I've got all the components assembled, I find it much easier to stand up to start then working out the exact positions. So I want the top of the loop at 4 feet. So this is the first length that we did, 1 length of string, 2 pine cones. I've worked out where I want the size of my loop because it's going to go somewhere where I need quite a generous loop in order to hang it. And then taking the different pine cones that have got the odd lengths of string on, they're all going to get bound together in the same position, but obviously the pine cones are at different heights. So this is what I'm doing here and just rotating, trying to work out, where's going to be the front, where's going to be the back, is everything balanced? It really is worth spending a good bit of time at this. These are going to be hung up for a long time and there's nothing worse than something catching your eye that's not right. So once I'm happy with that, I've got it back on the bench and I'm going to tie on another length of rope and then start to twist really quite tightly, because what I'm trying to achieve here is a fixing for all those loose pieces of rope, the individual cones. But by binding this round and round, nice and tightly, it will hold everything in position. Again, I've got the tape measure out because I want to measure the length of the binding that I'm doing here, because I want them to be identical as they are going to be seen side by side. If you're hanging these in different places, then obviously you don't have to be as meticulous as this. Once I get to where I want to be, I just trim off the surplus, do a double notch that I pull very tightly, and then trim off all the little tails, making sure not to trim the loop. The little odd tails at the top there are hidden by ribbon. Now I'm going for something very rustic looking. I may add a little bit of velvet to this as well. You could do the whole thing out of ribbon. You don't have to use rope or twine. It just depends on what your decor is, what colours you've chosen for Christmas, for your winter styling. Just have fun with it, and you're going to create something that is unique and high-end. Now on to the next project. Now these are two old vintage wall lights that were in my previous house when we first moved in, and I took them down because I was taking the wall down along with many other walls, but I've always kept them and I keep robbing from them crystals from them and then adding them to other chandeliers, and this is basically what I'm left with, so I want to make some decorations. I've got these huge spools of vintage string that I picked up from an antique shop in Rye for £20 some years ago, so I thought I might use those as well. The wire on here is so old and thin that it will cut with just scissors, obviously my super sharpened scissors. So it's super easy to get these crystals off. Now I appreciate not everybody has vintage wall lights lying around, but you can go around the charity shops, the thrift stores, eBay, Facebook. There's always broken lights available, modern chandeliers as well that you can take crystals off, you can break them up. To have a look around, see what you can find, because if you can pick up something like this and then take it apart and thread them up using whatever it is that suits your decor, I think these make stunning Christmas tree ornaments. And of course, not just for the Christmas tree. You can bring a branch in, twigs in from the garden and hang them all winter long. Now is the time to start getting down all your Christmas ornaments, all your decorations that you own, and having a good sort through and seeing what you want to keep, what you want to maybe trade with your friends, what you'd like to revamp. This is just a small selection. I didn't realise I actually had 5 vintage sledges, so that could be interesting when it comes to styling. However, I do have a box of really seriously, and I'm talking 30 years plus decorations here that I've brought into the house, and I'm going to do some makeovers on them. Oh, and by the way, these shallow storage tubs have been a real game changer for me. So I will link them down in the description box below. They come in a pack of 8 and they are super value. But now it's time to choose a bauble. I am going to do 3 makeovers now. So the first one, we've got the glue gun out, we've got some raffia, and I'm going to start by just nipping off that hanger and top off the bauble and just set that to one side. A good dollop of glue to get this started. Get that raffia really pressed firmly in. Run some glue around the bauble to the end, and then we are just going to wrap and then keep gluing and wrapping. It's such a super simple technique. I actually did this with orange plastic pumpkins a few weeks ago on my fall decor DIY. So do have a look at that one. In fact, you could even just take the tops off your pumpkins and stick hangers on and then hang them on the Christmas tree. These make lovely neutral decorations. So I'm going to snip off that gold hanger because I don't like that. And I am going to add some of that twine again. So it keeps all the theme together. There is a little spike on the bottom there, so I've just snipped that off. Plenty of glue and press really firmly for a minute or so, so it really gets a good adhesion. And then add your string, your ribbon, whatever it is you want to hang it with. And of course, raffia comes in lots of different colours, so you can really colour coordinate these to whatever style of decoration you've got. It doesn't have to be just rustic. Now, while I've got the glue gun out, let's choose another bauble and let's do a different design. I've got some twine here and I've got some string, but you could use wool, you know, anything like that, wherever your imagination takes you. I'm snipping off that little gold hanger because we're not going to use that, but we are keeping the top of the bauble on. So a good dollop of glue. And then we're going to start with the jute, with the twine, and then just wrapping really tightly around itself. It also means doing this technique that you don't have to bother painting your bauble first because you're not going to see the original colour if you keep that wrapping really quite tightly. I always think these are lovely projects to be able to do with children, with grandchildren. It's lovely just to be able to sit around a table and chatter whilst you're doing something crafty with your hands. Again, you can use different colours in order to coordinate with your decor. You can mix up as well. So here, for example, I could have done part of it in the jute and then gone in with the white string, so it could have been multicoloured. You can let your imagination run away with you and, you know, just look around your house, see what things you've got, what you can utilise. When you come to the top here, you keep on wrapping around the top of the bauble and completely cover it, and then just create a little loop and glue that into position. And then it's good to hang either as it is or add some ribbon or string or beads or wherever your imagination takes you. Have some fun with it. Time to choose some more baubles, and the glue gun has gone away. This time I'm going to do a faux stone effect. Now, my regular viewers have seen me do this many times, but never on a bauble. We're going to mix up wall filler with water. I'm going to add coffee, and of course it's Christmas, so I'm going to use cinnamon. Now it's going to be messy, so the rubber gloves are out, and I'm going to be adding water to the wall filler, giving it a really good mix until it goes into a nice smooth gloopy mix. which I am going to get my hands in there in a moment, but I'm going to make sure that I keep that little hanger because we're going to use that to hang on to skewers so the bauble can dry overnight. You just work in the mixture, and this goes off really quite quickly. So as it starts to dry, you then start dabbing into the coffee. I'm going to start with first and working those grains into that wet mix so they all stay. They're not going to fall off when it's dry. And then I'm going to add some of the cinnamon as well. And I can tell you this smells absolutely divine. It is a total joy doing this. I'm working all the way up to the top of the bauble, and then I'm going to use a skewer to make sure that that hole, the hanger, is still clear, because when it's dry, I'm going to snip off that gold thread and then thread my string through. Now, the production line has gone well. We're going to leave those to dry overnight, and then we're going to style them. Baubles don't just have to be hung. I quite often use them in dishes, in bowls. In here, I have got some old packing material. It's shredded cardboard, and I've just put that around the base to help support the twisted willow in here. And I think these look lovely, all just sat around in the bottom there. Well, I hope you enjoyed that and it gave you lots of inspiration. Just have a look at your old decorations, have a look at what you've got around the house. You don't need to go rushing out to the shops if you don't need to. And it's amazing what you can find in nature to decorate your homes for Christmas. If you've enjoyed this video, then please do join me next week when we are going full on Christmas styling of the staircase, and not just the staircase, the galleried landing and the beam chandelier that we have up there. Thank you so much for watching this week, and I do hope you'll join me next week. Take care.